The silver dollar coins clinked across the weathered wooden table as the final hand was dealt. Carson Webb, a solitary rancher with steel-gray eyes and a reputation that preceded him across 3 territories, kept his expression unreadable. The saloon in Black Creek was thick with cigarette smoke and the stench of cheap whiskey. Sawdust covered the floor, and the only sound was the nervous breathing of the men seated around the table. It was past midnight, and what had started as a friendly game had evolved into something far more dangerous. Across from him sat Victor Duskoff, a Russian merchant who trafficked in human misery. The cards in Victor's hand trembled slightly. Fear or greed, Carson couldn't quite tell. The pot had grown beyond money hours ago. Victor had wagered his business, his claim on a silver mine, and finally, in a moment of drunken desperation, the thing he considered his most disposable asset. The girl, Victor slurred, pushing a piece of paper across the table. Contract of ownership. She's nearly worthless anyway. Won't eat much. Won't cause trouble. Broken spirit, you understand. Perfect servant. Carson picked up the paper and scanned it. Lei Chen, age 22, indentured servant with 3 years of service remaining. There was a crude drawing of a young woman's face on the document, and beneath it, Victor's signature in heavy Cyrillic letters. Carson's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He laid down his cards, 4 aces and a king. Victor's face went white. The table erupted in drunken cheers and whistles, but Carson's focus was already elsewhere. He stood, folded the paper carefully, and walked out of the saloon into the cool desert night without saying another word. The holding house where Victor kept his inventory was a dilapidated structure on the outskirts of town. Carson arrived at dawn with the local sheriff, paperwork in hand. The sheriff, a good man named Hayes, looked genuinely disturbed by what they found. The rooms were cramped and filthy. Women, some Chinese, some from other parts of the world, were crammed into spaces no bigger than closets. When the women saw the lawmen, panic spread through the building like wildfire. "Where's Lei Chen?" Carson asked quietly. A guard pointed to a back room. Carson walked through the narrow hallway, his boots echoing against the wooden floors. Inside the small room at the end, he found her. She was curled on a thin mat in the corner, her dark hair matted and unwashed. She wore a threadbare dress that might have been white once, now stained with dirt and neglect. When she heard him enter, she flinched, pulling her knees tighter against her chest. "Lei Chen," he said gently. She didn't look up. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was barely a whisper. "I cannot pay more. I have nothing. Please do not hurt me." Carson felt something break open inside his chest. He approached slowly, carefully, as if approaching a wounded animal. "My name is Carson Webb. I own a ranch about 2 hours from here. I've come to take you away from this place." Lei's eyes finally lifted to meet his, and they were hollow, all light extinguished, all hope burned away. "To do what?" she asked bitterly. "To own me instead? To use me like the others?" "No," Carson said firmly. "To give you a choice." The ride to the ranch was silent. Lei Chen sat in front of him on the horse, her body rigid, as far from him as possible without falling. When they arrived at his property, she stared at the house, a large, well-maintained wooden structure with a wraparound porch and neat gardens. It was impressive, compared to the hovel she'd been imprisoned in, but her expression remained guarded. "This is your home now," Carson said, helping her down. "There's a room upstairs where you can sleep. It locks from the inside. No one will disturb you." Lei looked at him with suspicion. "Why? What do you want from me?" "Nothing. You're free. I won you in a poker game, which is absurd, because you were never anyone's property to bet. But now you're here, and you're safe. That's all I want." She studied his face for a long moment, searching for the lie that surely must be there. Finding none, she asked, "What do you want me to do?" "Whatever you want," Carson replied. "If you want to work, there's cooking, cleaning, mending. If you want to rest and heal, you do that. The choice is entirely yours." The first week, Lei barely spoke. She moved through the house like a ghost, preparing simple meals, cleaning with meticulous care, always keeping her distance from Carson. He gave her space, respecting the boundaries she desperately needed for so long. But he also made sure she ate well. that her room was clean and comfortable, that fresh water was always available. It was on the 8th day that something shifted. Carson had brought an dress from town. Simple, modest, but made of fine fabric in a soft green color. He'd left it on her bed without explanation. When Leigh came down for dinner, she was wearing it. The transformation was subtle but profound. The color brought warmth to her face, and the proper fit of the dress seemed to give her back some semblance of her former self. She'd washed her hair, and it hung in a long, glossy braid down her back. "It suits you," Carson said simply. Leigh's eyes filled with tears, and she turned away quickly. "You shouldn't have done that." "Why not?" "Because then I start to believe this is real," she said, her voice breaking. "And when you tire of me, as all men do, it will hurt more." Carson set down his fork. "Leigh, I will never tire of you. Not because of anything you do or don't do, but because you deserve to be treated with dignity, and I'm going to do that regardless of your response." She didn't answer, but something in her posture softened slightly. 2 months into her stay, Leigh began to truly live rather than merely survive. She started tending to the garden, coaxing vegetables and flour from the harsh desert soil with a skill that suggested she'd done this before. She hummed while she worked, old songs in Mandarin that seemed to carry memories of another life. One afternoon, Carson found her sitting on the porch, tears streaming down her face. "What's wrong?" he asked, concern flooding through him. "Nothing is wrong," she said, wiping her eyes. "Everything is right, and that frightens me. I have been treated like a thing for so long that I don't know how to be a person anymore. I don't know how to accept kindness without waiting for the cruelty that comes after." Carson sat beside her but didn't touch her. "Then we'll figure it out together. There's no cruelty coming. I promise you." "How can you promise that?" Leigh asked. "You don't owe me now. I could leave. I could take money and disappear, and you'd have nothing to show for your kindness but an empty house." "I know," Carson said. "And if that's what you want, I'll help you do it. But I'm hoping you'll stay." Leigh turned to look at him, really look at him, for the first time since she'd arrived. She saw the loneliness in his eyes, the grief etched into the lines of his face, the gentle strength in his bearing. And she understood then that they were two broken people, both carrying wounds that had shaped them in profound ways. "I'll stay," she said softly. "Not because I'm indebted, not because I have nowhere else to go, but because I choose to." 3 months later, on a warm evening as the sun painted the desert in shade of amber and rose, Carson asked Leigh to sit with him on the porch. She came willingly, and he took her hand, something he'd never dared to do before. "I won you in a poker game," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "But from the moment I saw your face on that paper, I knew I'd won something far more valuable than money or property. I won a chance at redemption, a chance to prove that not all men are monsters, a chance to love someone and expect nothing in return." Leigh's eyes glistened with tears. "You didn't win me. You freed me. And in freeing me, you freed yourself. Will you marry me?" Carson asked. "Not because you owe me anything, not because of gratitude or obligation, but because you love me the way I love you." Leigh smiled, a real smile, full of joy and hope, for the first time since she'd arrived at his ranch. Yes, I will marry you, because you treated me like a queen when I thought I was worthless, because you showed me that kindness exists in this world, because I love you, Carson Webb, with all the broken pieces of my heart." They held each other as the stars emerged overhead, two souls who had been discarded by a cruel world, now finding home in each other's arms. The rancher who'd won a girl in a poker game had discovered something infinitely more precious, the power of unconditional love to heal even the deepest wounds. In the distance, a coyote howled at the moon. The desert wind carried the scent of sage and possibility. And on the porch of a modest ranch house, two people began writing a new story, one of redemption, trust, and the transformative power of being treated like you matter.